my name is James Nicholson. I hope you guys are well. In this video, I want to talk about, is running an Airbnb business risky? Is it safe? Is it something that you should be considering? Now, this also covers the topic of service accommodation, which is pretty much the same thing. It's basically where you take a property that you either rent from somebody or you own, and then you sublet it or you rent it out on a short-term basis. Now, this is very popular, but every day you can see articles in the news where things like this go wrong. So let's talk about the safety, the cost implications, the financial risks that you might have by running an Airbnb business. Now, if you're new to this channel is all about property investing and taking your property business to the next level. We've got new content every single day. So while you're here, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification. And we're trying to hit 100,000 views for the second month in a row this month. So smash that like button over there. That really helps us with the algorithm. So, what do we need to talk about when running an Airbnb? What's the potential downside to it? Well, first is your own safety, right? Personal safety. That's very, very important. Now, Airbnb started with people renting out rooms. In fact, some people rented out just space on floors. So it was often around things like festivals and big events in cities where you just couldn't get a hotel. They were just fully booked. And so some people run the Airbnb model where they rent out their room to a tenant. Now, that does have an element of risk because you will be letting people into your house. Potentially they'll arrive late at night. You don't know, maybe they've been out partying all the time and you can't stop them doing that. If they want to go out and have fun, that's the point. They're probably away for a reason, right? And so there is an element of risk on that. And so what I would say is, if you're looking to rent a property and you're going to be renting out a room rather than the whole property, then make sure that you're comfortable with that and make sure you're not classed as a vulnerable person, and make sure that you're clear on any house rules that you've got in the listings. And so some people say that you've got to come back by a certain time or no alcohol in the property. You're able to state that kind of stuff. You can improve the safety that you have. Now, if I had a choice of renting out a room in a property or renting out a whole property, I would always prefer to rent out the whole property. I think your personal safety is going to be in a much better place if you do that. So that's a consideration, personal safety. Next is vacancies, right? You have got the risk of not getting bookings. And so we have a program called the Serviced Accommodation Accelerator. And we go in all the details. It's not just about listing on Airbnb. You need to market that property to ensure that you don't have vacancies. Now, there are certain things that you can do, like not just list on Airbnb. You could list on booking.com or hundreds of other sites. You could approach companies that have contractors that could take slightly longer bookings for you, maybe a week at a time rather than just 1 or 2 days. And so there is a risk that you could list your Airbnb property and miss out on bookings, particularly if you go somewhere seasonal, right? So if you are to get an Airbnb and then you go live in January, of course, you're going to get less bookings in January. You've just missed, or October or November, you've just missed that summer period of time. So these things are important. You need to make sure that you do your research. You find out how much the nightly rate is. You find out what's the occupancy level in these towns that you're looking to buy that property. What do people look for? Do they want houses? Do they want flats? Do they want just single rooms? This is all very, very important. In fact, I can help you a little bit with that because we've actually created a guide on serviced accommodation, the ultimate guide to serviced accommodation. So what I'll do is I'll put a link in the description where you can grab that free guide. So make sure you do that before this video finishes, because otherwise it'll go on to someone else's video. So yeah, make sure you click on and grab that guide while you're here. What else is there? Guest safety, that's important as well, right? So this is a risk to you. You must make sure your property is safe for someone to stay at. It's very important that you do that. So you need to make sure that the floorboards aren't coming up, that the floorboards aren't going to have holes in them, they haven't got woodworm in them and someone's going to fall through, that there's no trip or slip hazards, that bathrooms are safe, that you've got decent tiles on there, that people aren't going to get out the bath and fall over and break their arm. Because in this day and age, people will try and sue you for anything. So what can you do to improve guest safety? Well, one, get a builder to just have a look round and make sure the property is safe. Get things like fire extinguishers in there. They don't cost much money. You can buy these things from Wix, B&Q, Amazon. Get a fire blanket in there. Make sure that there's no trip hazards. And most importantly, if any of this does go wrong, make sure you have insurance. It needs to be not just landlord insurance, it needs to be serviced accommodation insurance. There are providers that will specialize in this kind of stuff for you, and that's very, very important that you're protected when you have guests. If you're not, you could get yourself in lots of problems. So guest safety is very, very important. Next is cash flow, right? It can cost a bit of cash to get this up and running. You're going to need furniture in the property. You need to add some other stuff. My Airbnb in London, we've got an Xbox in there, for example, so people can watch Netflix and play some games as well if they choose while they're there. Now, we're right near a tourist destination, so most of our guests are out looking at London, fortunately, but these are things to consider. We stayed in France recently. Brilliant. It had a swimming pool, but one of our comments was, you know what this place would be great to have is a ping pong table. And that's actually something that people search on Airbnb, table tennis tables. So having that will get you higher up the listings. I drive a Tesla. I'm in a Tesla group on Facebook. Every day I see all the comments in there. They're talking about looking for destinations that have a charger at the property. So these sorts of things can really, really help. How you can get good cash flow is getting your vacancies filled as well. So Airbnb will pay you once you've had the stay, same with the other places. And so improve the cash flow by improving the marketing and making sure that you adjust the prices seasonally. We stayed in France this summer in June, and it's a great place where we stayed, but it was only £90 a day, right? Which is good value. Great for me. So I had a look on the lady's Airbnb listing. She charges £90 a day all year, including August when it's the school holidays. And so she could massively improve her cash flow by charging £200 in August when it's the peak season. She'd be fully booked still, but she hasn't. She's gone for the easy route, which might impact her cash flow. So you want to adjust your prices accordingly. That's very, very important. Next, bad tenants, right? These are the thing that scares most people when they talk about Airbnb. And I'll be honest, it happens, especially if you read the Daily Mail. It's always happening, but it's rare. It's very rare that you'll get a bad tenant in a property. Don't be put off by the stories that you see in the newspapers and stuff like that. It's just not quite as bad as people expect. And so, yes, you will get bad tenants from time to time. But how you can get around that is having house rules. So put the rules in that property. And so when we stayed in France, they did have a rule that you had to not be in no music by the swimming pool between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. because a lot of the locals have a siesta, right? Fair enough. We didn't have music anytime anyway. And so they just had that rule in there. We knew about it, so we didn't break that rule and cause problems for that person with their local neighbours. You could put a CCTV camera outside the property because you can't put one inside. You can't be watching what they're doing. But by the front door, you could easily have a camera. And then you could be, if you're concerned about there's a party there, you can see, is there lots of people turning up or smoking outside? And you'll have with your Airbnb booking a way to contact the tenant if there is a problem. So do make sure that you have these things in place, like rules, regulations, and on the external, you could consider having CCTV. So what do you think about that? Is Airbnb risky? Everything's risky. Everything's risky, but the cash flow in Airbnb is very, very good compared to a traditional buy-to-let. In fact, it's one of my favorite strategies on property investing. We've made a guide, as we said, the ultimate guide to serviced accommodation. I'm going to link that below, so make sure you grab a copy of that. Do subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, check out some other content on my channel, especially if you're interested in Airbnb. We've got a hell of a lot coming up in the next few weeks. And also, go and check out this video right here.